I had it all. $15 million tucked away in investments after selling my software security startup. Nobody knew except my closest financial advisors. I lived in a modest home, drove a practical car, and dated Sarah, who loved me for who I was, not what I owned. Life was perfect until that fateful family dinner back home. My brother Jack stood up, wine glass in hand, and announced to everyone, "Little brother Fletcher here is worth $15 million. The table fell silent. In that moment, I watched genuine shock transform into something darker in their eyes. If you are watching this video from a family with complicated money dynamics, hit like and subscribe to discover how I navigated the storm none of us want to face. Growing up in Westfield, Pennsylvania was as American as it gets. Dad worked construction, breaking his back 60 hours a week to keep food on our table. Mom took night shifts at the local hospital, as a nurse, often coming home with dark circles under her eyes that she tried to hide with a warm smile. We were firmly middle class, not struggling, but certainly not comfortable enough to avoid constant conversations about budgets at the dinner table. My relationship with my older brother Jack was complicated from the start. 3 years, my senior Jack was the golden child in our household. He was the high school football star, popular with everyone in town, while I was the quiet kid who spent weekends coding and building computers. Despite Jack bringing home C's and D's on his report cards, my straight A's never seemed to generate the same excitement from our parents. "Fletcher just has it easy with books," Dad would say, dismissing my hard work while celebrating Jack scoring a touchdown. Our different paths became more apparent in college. Jack attended the local state university on a partial athletic scholarship, but partied his way through freshman year and lost his funding. When he called home in tears about possibly dropping out, I was the one who stepped up. I had been working 2 part-time jobs while taking a full course load in computer science. Without hesitation, I withdrew $4,000 from my carefully built savings to help cover his next semester. "I will pay you back, little brother," he promised. He never did. This pattern continued throughout our 20s, when Mom and Dad racked up $12,000 in credit card debt after Dad threw out his back. I drained my account again to help them. When Jack needed money to move to a new apartment after a breakup, I covered his security deposit. When my younger sister Lisa needed textbooks for her nursing program, I made sure she had the best ones available. All this time, I was barely getting by myself. Student loans hung over my head like storm clouds. My ancient Honda broke down twice a month. I ate ramen noodles 4 nights a week to save cash, but I never complained. They were family, and that meant something to me. After graduation, I decided Silicon Valley was calling my name. The move 3,000 miles away from Westfield was both terrifying and liberating. For the first time, I could focus entirely on my dreams without being pulled into family financial emergencies. Our communication dwindled to occasional phone calls on holidays and birthdays. Those first years in California were brutal. I worked 80 to 100-hour weeks, sleeping under my desk sometimes to meet deadlines. I took coding jobs at startups that paid me partially in worthless equity. I learned by failing repeatedly. No one in my family asked much about my work. It was all computer stuff to them anyway. When I called home, conversations centered around town gossip, Jack's latest job, or Lisa's nursing career. The breakthrough happened in my 3rd year, when I developed a revolutionary security authentication protocol. A venture capital firm took notice, invested $7 million, and suddenly I had a real company with 30 employees. 2 years later, when a tech giant acquired us for $20 million, I could hardly believe it. After taxes and paying out other shareholders, I walked away with $15 million in liquid assets. I decided to keep my newfound wealth private for 2 key reasons. First, I had watched other successful friends become human ATMs for everyone they knew. Second, and more importantly, I wanted relationships based on genuine connections, not my bank account. Despite having millions, I purchased a reasonable 3-bedroom house in a good but not flashy neighborhood for $700,000. I kept my 5-year-old Toyota. I invested wisely, lived comfortably, but modestly, and donated anonymously to causes I cared about. The only luxury I permitted myself was freedom, the ability to work only on projects that excited me without worrying about a paycheck. When I met Sarah at a friend's barbecue, she assumed I was just another software engineer. She was a kindergarten teacher who spoke passionately about her students. On our third date, when I picked her up in my ordinary car wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, she smiled and said, "I love that you are so down to earth." Our relationship blossomed based on shared values, not spending potential. For 2 years we built something real, and I never corrected her assumption that I earned a typical programmer's salary. The invitation to return home for Mom's 60th birthday arrived by mail with her familiar handwriting on the envelope. It had been nearly 4 years since my last visit. With Sarah by my side, I decided it was time to reconnect with my roots. Westfield looked smaller than I remembered. The family home, once seemingly spacious, now appeared cramped with peeling paint and a sagging porch. Mom greeted us with teary eyes and bone-crushing hugs. "My Fletcher's so handsome now," she exclaimed, pulling Sarah into the embrace as well. Dad, more gray and stooped than I recalled, offered a firm handshake that turned into an awkward half-hug. Jack arrived shortly after, now divorced with twin 7-year-old boys who ran wild through the house. He had gained weight and lost hair, wearing the stressed expression of someone barely keeping it together. "The construction company downsized last month," he explained, when I asked about work. "Just temporary, though. Got some promising leads." The forced confidence in his voice suggested otherwise. Lisa showed up last, still single, at 28, working at the same hospital as Mom, but clearly exhausted. Over kitchen prep, she confided that her student loans topped $80,000. "The interest is killing me," she sighed, chopping carrots with unnecessary force. "I will be paying until I am 50. Throughout the afternoon, I noticed increasing questions about my life in California. How much did houses cost there? What kind of car was I driving now? Was the software industry still booming? Each question felt like a fishing expedition, but I deflected casually, keeping answers vague and redirecting conversations. Mom prepared her signature pot roast with mashed potatoes for dinner, the meal I had requested on every birthday growing up. We gathered around the old oak table, passing dishes family style while catching up. Sarah charmed everyone with stories about her kindergartners, while I shared sanitized versions of my work projects, carefully omitting any financial details. The first warning sign came when Jack mentioned running into someone named Marcus Johnson at a job fair. "He said he used to work with you at some security company out west," Jack said, watching my reaction closely. "Said the company sold for big money." My stomach tightened. Marcus had been a junior developer on my team, someone who would indeed know about the acquisition. I kept my expression neutral. "Yeah, the company did okay. Marcus exaggerates, though." I quickly changed the subject. We were midway through Mom's homemade apple pie when Jack clinked his fork against his wine glass. "I have something interesting to share," he announced, his eyes fixed on me with an unsettling gleam. "I did some digging after talking to Marcus. It seems my little brother has been keeping secrets." The table fell quiet. Sarah looked at me, confusion evident in her expression. "Fletcher here sold his company for $20 million. 2 years ago," Jack continued, his voice rising. "After taxes, that leaves him with about $15 million in the bank. Is that right, little brother?" The silence that followed was deafening. All eyes turned to me, searching for confirmation. Sarah's fork clattered onto her plate. "Is this true?" Dad finally asked, his voice unnaturally quiet. I considered lying, but realized the truth would eventually surface anyway. "The numbers are not exactly right, but yes, the company did sell, and I did well from the transaction." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face flushed deep red. Lisa stared open-mouthed. But Jack wore an expression I can only describe as triumphant, like he had finally won some long-running competition. All this time, Dad's voice shook with unexpected anger. "We have been struggling to make ends meet. Your mother and I can barely afford our medications on our retirement. Jack lost his house. Lisa is drowning in debt. And you have been sitting on millions. You always were selfish," Jack added, twisting the knife. "Living large in California while the rest of us barely get by. That is not fair," I started to protest, but the accusations continued from all sides. "All those times I called asking if you could help with the house repairs," Mom said, tears forming. "You always said you were tight on cash." "I paid for your college," I reminded Jack. "I helped with Dad's medical bills. I sent money when I could. Pennies compared to what you have," Jack scoffed. The dinner devolved into chaos. Sarah tried defending me, pointing out that my money was mine to manage, which only angered my family further. "Of course you would say that," Jack snapped at her. "You hit the lottery dating him." After dessert was abandoned, we moved to the living room where the real demands began. Dad, suddenly animated with new possibility, pulled out a real estate listing on his phone. "Your mother always wanted a house on Lakeview Drive," he said, showing me a massive colonial with an asking price of $2 million. "With your money you could buy this outright for us." Jack was more direct. "I think $5 million split between the rest of us is only fair," he stated, as if suggesting a reasonable division of dinner costs. $1 million for Lisa, 2 for me since I have the boys to support, and 2 for Mom and Dad. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process how quickly my family had transformed into strangers, calculating their share of my success. Success they had neither contributed to, nor even shown interest in, until this moment. Sarah squeezed my hand in silent support as the night stretched into uncomfortable territory. When we finally retreated to our hotel, my phone buzzed continuously with messages from each family member reiterating their expectations and adding guilt for good measure. "You did not tell me," Sarah said quietly, as we lay in the darkness of our room. "I was going to," I whispered back. "I just wanted to make sure we were together for the right reasons first." She was quiet for a long moment. "I understand why, but it still hurts that you did not trust me." Despite her wounded feelings, Sarah remained my strongest ally in what would become the most difficult battle of my life. The days following that disastrous dinner were a blur of harassment disguised as family concern. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from everyone. Mom sent emotional texts about all her sacrifices raising me, and how a house on Lakeview Drive would finally give her peace in her golden years. Dad left gruff voicemails about doing right by the people who changed your diapers. Lisa sent long emails detailing her student loan statements and monthly budget shortfalls. Jack was the worst. Beyond his own demanding messages, he took to social media. A cousins group chat I rarely participated in suddenly exploded with discussions about my secret fortune. Distant relatives I had not spoken to since childhood found my email address, each with heartbreaking stories and specific dollar amounts that would solve their problems. "Do you see what you are doing to this family?" Jack texted one morning. "Mom cried herself to sleep last night knowing her son is a millionaire who will not even help his own blood." The narrative being crafted was clear. I was the villain, the selfish tech brat who abandoned his roots and hoarded wealth while his loving family suffered. No mention was made of the thousands I had already given over the years, the sacrifices I had made when I had far less. Jack created a private Facebook group titled Fletcher's Family Fund, where he openly discussed strategies for helping our successful brother see his moral obligations. Mutual friends from high school messaged me with screenshots concerned about what they were seeing. After a week of this mounting pressure, I suggested a family meeting to discuss reasonable ways I could help. We gathered at my parents' house, where I proposed paying off Lisa's student loans in full, setting up a modest monthly stipend for my parents to ease their retirement, and helping Jack with a career retraining program. The total package would have been generous by any standard, nearly $300,000 in immediate assistance plus ongoing support. "That is insulting," Jack spat before anyone else could respond. "You make $15 million and offer crumbs. Mom and Dad gave you life. This is not about what I owe," I tried to explain. "This is about helping in ways that make sense. You can afford to give us each $1 million and never even feel it," Dad said, his voice cold. "Your mother deserves that house on Lakeview." The meeting ended with slammed doors, and my mother in tears. No resolution, only deeper divisions. My proposed assistance was rejected as too little from someone with so much. The situation escalated when Jack began calling Sarah's school, leaving messages about her relationship with a millionaire who refuses to help his dying parents. My mother was not dying, but facts no longer seemed important. Sarah was pulled aside by her principal, concerned about the disruptive calls. "Your family is calling me a gold digger," Sarah said that night, her voice breaking. "They are saying, I knew about your money all along, and am the reason you will not share it." The woman who had stood by me through this nightmare was now being dragged into the mud by people who claimed to love me. The final breaking point came 3 weeks after the initial dinner. I received an official legal notice my parents had filed for filial support in their home state, to a rarely used law, that in some jurisdictions can require adult children to financially support their parents based on ability to pay. Jack had researched this obscure legal avenue and convinced my parents to pursue it. "We did not want to do this," my mother said when I called in disbelief. "But Jack found us a lawyer who says we have a case. All we want is what is fair, Fletcher." Jack went further, retaining his own attorney to explore suing me separately for promised financial support based on fabricated conversations that never happened. He claimed I had verbally agreed to fund his children's education and buy him a new house once I made it big. I barely slept that night, pacing our hotel room while Sarah watched with growing concern. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. These people, my blood, were not just asking for help but trying to force my hand through public shaming, harassment, and now legal action. The next morning brought another shock. While retrieving some belongings from my old room at my parents' house, I discovered evidence that someone had gone through my luggage. My personal laptop showed signs of attempted access. A quick check revealed Jack had been in the house earlier that day, supposedly to help Mom with groceries. Sarah found me sitting on my childhood bed, head in hands. "Fletcher," she said gently, "this is not going to stop. They see you as nothing but a dollar sign now." "What am I supposed to do?" I asked, feeling more lost than when I first moved across the country with nothing but student debt and dreams. "You protect what you built," she said firmly. "You did not work 80-hour weeks and risk everything just to be extorted by people who did not believe in you until you had something they wanted." That night, staring at the ceiling of our hotel room, I made the hardest decision of my life. The people I had sacrificed for repeatedly throughout my life had revealed their true character when presented with the opportunity for unearned wealth. My success had not brought my family closer. It had transformed them into strangers who saw me as nothing more than an opportunity. "I need to fight this," I told Sarah as dawn broke. "Not just the legal case, but the entire narrative they are creating." For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity. The guilt that had paralyzed me gave way to resolve. I would not allow myself to be bullied, even by family. Some relationships, I realized with profound sadness, are conditional in ways we never see until they are tested. The morning after my decision, I contacted the most respected law firm in Pennsylvania, specializing in family law. The senior partner listened carefully to my situation, taking detailed notes about my history of financial support to my family, despite my own struggles at the time. "This type of case is unfortunately becoming more common," she explained. "Successful children being targeted by family members, sometimes with these obscure filial support statutes. But do not worry. These laws have very specific requirements that rarely apply when the parents are not completely destitute or in nursing homes." Under her guidance, I assembled documentation of every dollar I had ever given my family: $22,000 to my parents over the years, $17,000 to Jack, $9,000 to Lisa. I gathered evidence of the harassment campaign, the Facebook group, the calls to Sarah's workplace, the attempted invasion of my personal devices. Sarah helped organize everything, spending evenings, sorting through old bank statements and emails. "I understand now why you kept your wealth private," she said one night. "Money does not just change how others see you. It reveals who they truly were all along." The court date arrived with painful swiftness. The county courthouse, a building I had passed countless times growing up, now felt foreign and hostile. My parents sat on one side of the room with their attorney Jack beside them, looking smugly confident. Lisa had chosen not to attend, sending me a brief text that morning: "I cannot be part of this." When called to testify, I spoke calmly about my journey, working multiple jobs through college, giving money to family when I could barely afford rent, the years of sacrifice, building my company with no support from those now demanding its fruits. I detailed the reasonable offer I had made to help with specific needs rather than simply handing over millions. My attorney presented financial records showing my parents were not destitute as claimed. Their mortgage was nearly paid off. They had modest retirement accounts. Dad still did occasional construction work for cash. They were far from the impoverished elders depicted in their filing. The judge, a practical woman in her 60s, listened attentively to both sides before rendering her verdict. The filial support statute is designed as a safety net of last resort, not a mechanism for family members to claim entitlement to another's success, she stated firmly. Mr. Harlow has demonstrated a history of reasonable support to his family when needed. The plaintiffs have not demonstrated genuine need meeting the high threshold required by this statute. She dismissed the case entirely, adding a pointed comment. Families should resolve such matters privately rather than burdening the courts with what appears to be essentially a disagreement about gift-giving. Jack stormed out before proceedings concluded. My parents avoided my eyes as they shuffled out behind their disappointed attorney. In that moment, victory felt hollow. I had won the legal battle, but lost something far more valuable. Outside the courthouse, I made 3 phone calls. First to Lisa, offering to pay off her student loans as originally proposed with no strings attached. "I am so sorry about all this," she sobbed into the phone. I told them not to go through with the lawsuit. Jack convinced them they would win easily. Second, I called my parents' house. When Mom answered, I explained that despite everything, I would set up a modest monthly stipend of $2,000 to supplement their retirement. Not enough for a mansion on Lakeview Drive, but sufficient to ease genuine financial stress. "We were wrong," Mom admitted quietly. "Jack said you owed us millions, that the court would agree. We got caught up in it all." The third call was the hardest, to Jack. It went to voicemail as expected. "I will not be offering you any financial assistance," I stated clearly. "Your actions have shown me exactly what our relationship means to you. I wish your boys the best, but moving forward we will have no contact." The healing process began slowly. Sarah suggested therapy, where I worked through the complicated emotions of establishing healthy boundaries with family. Setting boundaries is not selfishness, my therapist reminded me. It is self-preservation. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Sarah stood by me through it all, more concerned with my emotional well-being than the revelation of my wealth. "For the record," she said, "one evening as we walked along the beach near our hotel, I fell in love with the guy who spent 30 minutes helping my 5-year-old student tie his shoes correctly during that class visit. Not with your bank account." Over the following months, my relationship with Lisa gradually mended. Free from crushing debt, she flourished in her nursing career and became the one family member I could trust. Mom called weekly, our conversations, initially awkward but slowly warming as she stopped mentioning money altogether. Dad remained distant but civil during the few times we spoke. Jack made one final attempt at reconciliation 6 months later, a text message suggesting we put the past behind us, coincidentally arriving the same day his car was repossessed. I did not respond. Instead, I channeled my energy into creating something positive from this painful experience. With Sarah's encouragement, I established a scholarship foundation for first-generation college students from my hometown, providing not just funds but mentorship to young people with big dreams and limited resources. The hardest lesson I learned through this ordeal was that wealth does not create character flaws in others. It simply amplifies what was always there. Those who loved me for me continued to do so regardless of my bank balance. Those who saw me as a means to an end revealed themselves when they thought I had something they deserved. True wealth, I discovered, has little to do with money. It lies in relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. It exists in the courage to protect what you have built while remaining generous on your own terms. Most importantly, it flourishes when you refuse to let others define your worth or obligations based on their expectations rather than your values. If my story resonates with you, I would love to hear about your own experiences navigating family financial dynamics in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? What helped you through that process? Please subscribe if you found value in my journey, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing your ground is not selfishness, but self-respect. Thank you for listening, and remember that your success belongs to you, even as you choose to share it with those who truly celebrate, rather than simply benefit from it.